Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews. It's Gaming Friday. I'm Gary.
And I'm Geoff.
And today we are taking a look at Psychonauts, which came out in 2005.
Playing with your brain, Gary. Playing with your brain.
Playing with my brain. Oh god, it's going to be more like Hellraiser than Monkey Island, I think.
Who knows? I'm having a little dance around your cerebrum at the moment. It's fun.
So this is a game that was developed by Double Fine Productions, and this was actually their first game,
Right.
as an independent sort of company. Of course, you know, everyone pretty much knows the history of Tim Schafer. He's like one of the most iconic video game designers of our time. Of course, with classic games under LucasArts, such as Monkey Island, perhaps Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, and I guess you might see a sort of resemblance here that a lot of these games were sort of story-driven, point-and-click adventure games.
Yeah.
And Psychonauts is an absolute departure from Tim Schafer's other works, in the fact that this is much more of an arcadey platformer action game with some puzzles thrown in there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can. It's still got his sort of signature feel to it. Lots of voice acting and silliness and silly scripts, and kind of crazy art styles as well.
Absolutely, that's been sort of a staple in all of his games. Is that bizarre? I'd say it's almost a LucasArts feel to it, especially before they went and just produced nothing but Star Wars games after Star Wars games.
He reminds me a little bit of like Tim Burton almost.
You definitely get a Tim Burton-esque feel from, especially this game, with the very unhuman-looking characters.
Yeah, like the big sort of exaggerated, really weird-looking stuff going on. Yeah, I suppose he's a bit like that in Grim Fandango as well.
Definitely.
Monkey Island has its moments.
Yes, yeah, but it's all about the humour and the wit and even the dry humour that comes from the script and the characters. And as you can see with this game, there are a lot of cut sequences and cutscenes and characters, and it almost feels like, I don't know, like a deranged late-night Nickelodeon cartoon. Just to say that if you actually take all of the cutscenes, and there are Easter eggs in this game where there are characters and sequences of dialogue that you might otherwise miss if you just careen right through the main portion of the game.
Right.
And I think if you laid out all of the animated footage together, I think you end up with about 3.5 hours of content, which is almost like a movie marathon of cutscenes.
That's kind of cool.
Whether it's elongated cutscenes like this or actually just dialogue pieces within the game, there's a lot of content in here other than the actual puzzle solving and platform hack and slashing.
Yeah.
So this game actually took 4.5 years to make.
Wow.
And considering it was a fairly small team, and it was literally, you know, Tim Schafer and everyone who decided to up and leave LucasArts at the time, they took 4.5 years to make this game, and there was a bit of controversy around it because this game was supposed to be when the Xbox One came out, this was supposed to be the game that launched with it.
Right.
And of course it never made that deadline. It didn't come out until years and years later. So much so that the hype for this game had pretty much gone.
Did this come out for the original Xbox, or was it...
It never made it for the original
360?
Xbox. It eventually came out on the Xbox 360 around the time Halo 3 was coming out.
Wow.
So that just goes to show the time difference between when this game was started and eventually finished and then released.
Right.
So it came out on PS2, Xbox 360. Eventually it also went to PC, Mac and Linux. So it's available now on pretty much any platform that you want.
Right.
And it goes without saying that when this game came out, it only really sold about 100,000 units.
Yeah.
Which is really quite small.
There wasn't really much of a marketing fanfare for it, was there?
Not at all. This game has gone down as one of the biggest commercial failures in video games, especially considering, you know, the pedigree of the game developers.
Yeah.
And it came out at a time when there was little interest in this type of game. most people just wanted the next shooter. This was the era of first-person shooters, and here comes this bizarre, strange-looking game that was made for consoles, really, leaving its PC fan base behind as well. It kind of, I think it was Majestic who originally published the game. Subsequently, they went bankrupt as a result of this game not performing. But what is amazing though is, and just like every other Tim Schafer game, is that this game now has a massive cult following, because since it came onto Steam, and PC players got to play it as well, and word of mouth eventually spread, people went back and tracked this game down to get back and go and play it again.
I was going to say, its long-standing rating on Steam is overwhelmingly positive, which is
since its original release, it has now sold nearly 2 million units, which is a hell of a big increase over its initial release.
Of course.
So the popularity of this game has grown and grown and grown, and for good reason. So much so that now that this game's done so well, finally, they announced Psychonauts 2 back in 2015, so only last year, for a possible 2018 release. But of course,
it could be 2020.
It could be 2024. You never know how long it's going to take to make this game. However, it's also worth noting that they did crowdsource some of the money towards the next game. They've taken some of the money from Psychonauts 1 sales, plus whatever other money, but they did a crowdsourcing, and I think they made up to 8 million I think they originally made about 3 million, which is what they wanted, and then I think it went all the way up to 8 million total donations to get Psychonauts 2 made. So whether that means it's going to be bigger or better, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's now actually going to have some publicity behind it when it comes out, well, is yet to be seen. Because I have to say that after the Monkey Island and Full Throttle, Grim Fandango, Day of the Tentacle, I fell out of grace with some of those games, like some of the later sequels. And so I'm going to be honest now and say that I never purchased this game when it came out. I didn't even know about it. I was one of those that was waiting to get Halo 3 on day launch, I wanted the next shooter, and I thought this was, a kid's game. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, I mean, it surprises me because the Xbox One had a measure of success with Blinks, I think it was. Blinks was pretty good, and quite highly rated, which was like a puzzle platformer using sort of time travel ideas. And that had been a fair amount of success for Xbox One. But I guess by the time they got to 360, it was all Call of Duty and Battlefields, wasn't it, and that sort of thing. So it was, maybe it was just a fashion of the time, or maybe because they lost faith in it, they failed to properly market it and give it proper reviews. I'm not sure, but. Yeah, I mean, I noticed this because it was like a Double Fine thing, and I've been quite impressed with Double Fine Productions' work, and it was just ridiculously cheap on Steam. So I was like, well, I'll give that a go because this looks entertaining. It reminded me a little bit of the idea of Blinks, a puzzle platformer, and they can be very enjoyable to get into every once in a while.
Well, that's one thing that has to be said about this game, is that it is fun. It doesn't feel like a job to play it, because you play for a bit, you get rewarded with the next sort of cutscene, the next bit of story, makes you laugh, makes you like these characters, gets you behind this character. Our main character, our protagonist, is called Raz, or Rasputin is his full name. And he is a runaway spy with psychic powers. That's pretty much your setup for this game.
We ran to a place which the kids have been told it was summer camp, but it's a top secret Psychonaut training facility. and I just smuggled myself in, and they were like, and then because from the cutscene that we just watched, I went on a heartwarming description of what it means to be a Psychonaut and got myself in. So there we go. I'm in. I'm Raz. I'm a I've smuggled myself into this training facility, but I've got to prove myself as a Psychonaut before I get reported to my parents.
So the gist of this game, and as it would appear, is that the first real half of this game is a tutorial. It really is just preparing you for the major difficulty spike, which does come, sort of the midpoint to the near end game, and it does almost become a controller frenzy smashing affair.
Right. Okay.
And so the fun factor, in terms of difficulty, can wane slightly towards the end game.
Yeah.
But by then it's sort of you persevere through it to get to the end.
Yeah.
So yeah, aside from the difficulty spike, this game is immensely fun. Just in terms of its story, characters, and gameplay being pretty simplistic, and of course using your psychic powers, and the level design changes. That each level feels unique in its visual presentation, and the music, of course, changes with each level. And that is because you enter the brains and minds of different characters, which you then have to sort of, through puzzle solving and platforming and jumping around, and as you would have guessed it, from a usual platformer, eventually you solve the puzzle and rectify whatever's wrong with their minds, with their brains. And I think that's just a really unique idea.
This guy's got a tinfoil hat on.
It's because he doesn't want anyone playing with his mind.
Apparently it's to protect other people from his mind. He said you asked if he'd ever blown up anybody's head before, and he said no, well, sort of once, but now I wear this hat. So yeah, there seems to be lots of silly little gags in it, but this is it. It's this story and the characters that gives this sort of thing its charm, and gives this thing its appeal, and makes it span across generations. Like it kind of reminds me of like a Nintendo style production, really. Something that's kind of accessible to young and old, family friendly, but just fun. Do you know what I mean? Like that's its main focus.
Definitely, I would say that this game is charming and funny. And yeah, with an appeal to both adults and kids that you play. It's a family game.
I guess the premise of going into people's minds also gives you the groundwork for some pretty absurd, ridiculous
things. It's the fact that you get to explore memories, and that kind of adds the whole psychological element to it as well. So that there are some, I don't know, things to ponder about humanity and brains and minds and the way we think and the way we see things from different individual viewpoints within the game, meshed together with the bizarre comedy of Tim Schafer.
Yeah, and his bizarre character design.
So it's worth pointing out right now that we are playing this on PC.
Yep.
And there are a few issues to be had for anyone interested in playing this on PC when it comes to controller support.
Yes, it's a bit weird. For a start, okay, so I loaded into this game and I was like, oh, I'm going to use mouse and keyboard at first. Didn't bother to switch on my controller, but I very much don't recommend that because for some reason the mouse movement is very strange, or it is on my PC. And you go in and check the settings, and the x-axis isn't inverted in the settings, but it is inverted. It's really fucking weird. You move left to look right and move right to look left. So I was like, this is weird. So I got out my controller, and the movement feels natural with the controller. It feels like how it should do. It's definitely made for a controller. But then not everything in the game works with the controller. So a lot of the menu settings you have to use the mouse for. So it's very, very strange. But again, same with the controller. You have to invert the x-axis to make it normal. So yeah, some very strange little quirks about it. But it only took me about 2 minutes to get everything sorted out, and now it feels right. So a bit unusual. It starts on a very low resolution as well. You want to whack it all the way up to 1080p, and then when you do, you realise how simple the textures are.
Yeah, straight away.
They're
Would you like to talk about the graphics, Geoff?
They're quite muddy. Well, it's quite interesting because you look at the Rasputin, and there's quite a lot more detail there on Rasputin. But then you come down to some of these textures, and they're really very basic. But then it is a Double Fine Productions with this really sort of cartoony art style, which carries it off anyway. So, I mean, and there's some interesting features, like there's hardly any vegetation around, but the vegetation you do have, you can bump into
sort
it
of
and it moves around.
yeah.
Which is yeah, I mean, they've had to take that out of some of recent games, some of this vegetation interaction, because it's too CPU intensive. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can kind of see. I mean, if you look at the grass, it looks a bit muddy, but then you look at that and it looks a lot clearer. So I think as you go up to the high resolution, it just sort of becomes a lot clearer which textures have had more time on them and which haven't.
But it's not something that's going to detract you or prevent you from playing the game. It's the graphics are, I would say, seamless. I think because everything looks I don't know, it's a very specific art style.
Yeah.
That you're not really looking at textures, but so much more you're looking at the animations. You're looking at the way that the characters move, the way that they interact with each other, and the way how expressive they are, despite the lack of detail with how weird they are. Yes,
it is definitely like the Nintendo style philosophy. You make up for a multitude of sins with a very good art style. Yeah, and it look at it. I mean, look at it. It looks charming. So yeah, I mean, like I say, I really loved Blinks, and I thought it was amazing. It's one of my big regrets. Probably one of the biggest. Out of all the original Xbox games I'll go back to complete, Blinks is one of them, because I got to a stage in Blinks where I was like, how the hell do you do this? Because the puzzles get so ridiculously hard. And in the end, I never completed it, but it's one that I always regret not completing, because that challenge was awesome. So and it was a really well put together puzzle platformer, and this is the sort of game that I can imagine myself getting right into, because I do like what's his name, Tim Schafer.
Yeah.
I do like Schafer's comic style. I like his sense of humour. I like the way he tells stories as well. He's funny. So yes, looks like my teacher, my coach, has let me into his head.
Well, I've got to say that I have I have not been a huge fan of platforming games ever since childhood, playing Spectrum games all the way up to modern day.
Yeah.
Platforming, jumping games have just never been my forte.
Yeah.
When it comes to jumping onto moving platforms, I am the first one to stress out straight away. Not only do I get that vertigo feeling when I'm, the fear of falling as well from large heights, so I get that sickly feeling in my stomach, And so jumping in platforming games where you have to do it under time or stress of falling and replaying whole levels and losing lives and continues, oh my god. Yeah. So a lot of action platforming games I've kind of specifically avoided. And I don't know if anyone's ever played Catherine or seen my footage of that game, they'd understand why I stay away from them. Even if they're cartoony and pleasant and fun, such as Psychonauts, I try to shy away from them.
They are absolutely, for me, they are the biggest example of games that I will play for a while and then never finish. Abe's Odyssey. Prince of Persia's, Tomb Raiders, you name it. If it's a puzzler platformer, I'll probably get about halfway through and then get irritated with it or bored of it and go on to something else. But a handful of them I've really, really enjoyed. So the original Tomb Raider I've really enjoyed. I have got halfway through the latest Tomb Raider. I'm going back to that. That one really does try to play on your vertigo constantly.
Yes.
Blinks, I really want to go back to and finish. And yeah, I bought this game because I thought, well, this looks like the sort of game I'm really going to enjoy. It doesn't look like it's too tricky on the platforming by the looks of it. Oh.
You say that, and then you fall straight into a hole.
It's alright, it's alright. I'm back out again. The ones where you end up having to like wait for it to load every time you drop down a hole, those are the worst.
That's the frustration. It's the long loading times, but at least with this game's loading times are relatively short, and you do get sort of the whimsical level appropriate music playing in the background, which is it's quite interesting as well and quite varied.
Yeah.
And as I've said, the levels and the characters are different each time for each level, which makes it feel like a very memorable game.
Yeah, this is it. Like anything with a lot of charm like this, you've got to give it credit for putting that effort in. And I mean, if you're a fan of this kind of genre, then this should be right up your street. You know, like I can't see why anybody wouldn't want to play this, especially when you can get this so cheap. If you're a fan of like the Marios and things like that, then brilliant.
Definitely.
Maybe that's what I need to get first.
You will pick up that tag and you will put it on that bag you just found. Unless you'd rather just drop and give me 20 right now.
Well, there was a trunk tab, I think. These things you got to pick up as well. These are all things that add to it.
Well, there are a bunch of miscellaneous side quests and a bunch of items that you are going to have to explore, just like traditional Tim Schafer games, in order to progress.
Yeah.
And they're not always going to be obvious straight away.
No.
What connects with what. Thankfully, you don't have to try and combine all the items together and then go and interact with every possible object. It's kind of a little bit more straightforward
Not quite
in
like
this game.
the point and clickers.
But it can still leave you standing around scratching your head for a little while, wondering what it is you have to do or who you have to go and talk to. And the map on the game, it's a little bit simplistic, doesn't exactly help you easily, but it's serviceable. But thankfully you don't really need it that much.
There's a map. How did you get to that?
Somewhere in your options. I think it was, I don't know if you get to use it in the brain world.
Right. Let's have a look. So if you press the start button, this is where it all gets a bit weird with your controls. So if you use this,
use a controller, you can't move.
Yeah, you can sort of navigate up and down the menu. Oh, you can go left and right now. See what you've collected in the current area. So these are the number of figments you've got. Shows you how you're doing the bigger scheme of things. Also, once you get your scavenger hunt list. So that's the level you're on. That's what you've collected in the game. That's what I've got to do is the course. Once you go into Mental Vault, you store the memories here. That's, I guess, the levels
cinematics
you've been on and the
Yeah.
cinematics. Aha! And there's the map. Ah!
It's yeah.
So that's it. That's all you get. So, yeah, that was. That's all right.
And so, as you've quickly seen, there are a lot of collectibles and a lot of items to find. Standard traditional leveling up affair.
Yeah, standard platforming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. But yeah, I mean, the controls nice and easily. The jumping feels positive. It's sort of light and springy enough to feel solid. So yeah. Oh, I think I was supposed to avoid the flamey bits. Yeah, I don't know how it deals with death yet. I've not died yet.
Well, the game, I'm not too sure either. I don't think you have a health. I think you just sort of get retries, infinite amount of retries at the beginning of whatever area you've just died at. So I think it's kind of generous and just kind of puts you back on the platform.
Yeah. Let's see if I can die before the end of the video. He's so ugly. Isn't he? He's like, I guess that hair is.
It looks like a giant
says he's ginger.
chicken nugget.
I think he's the ginger kid. He's blue, but he's got like ginger hairstyle and orangey eyebrows and horrible teeth. She's the love interest. She's gotta be.
Gotta be.
Massive eyes. The art style of their heads is quite freaky. To be
It's
fair.
almost bobbleheady, kind of bouncing headed.
It is very much like that. I don't know what happened there. He kicked me off and now I'm okay. It looks like there's things to collect down here. Oh, what's she doing? Oh, he's proper Sergeant Major is your coach. It looks like you're at like a scouts club, but he shouts like a Sergeant Major. So you got to get all those. It's kind of cool though. I like those figments. They're just stupid. Wait,
You found a secret.
What? What?
Yep. Good old sewer level. You can't go very far without jumping into a sewer level.
Oh,
It's platforming,
It's
and the platforms
platforming.
are falling away beneath you.
Yeah.
Definitely my favourite part of any video game.
hey, see that was not too difficult. I've got to say that was okay because there was like quite a positive action on there, and it's forgiving
It's
with
quite
the double
responsive.
jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. The worst thing about a platformer is if it feels like it's killing you because it's unresponsive, which you do get like on some of those old Sega games and stuff. You try to do those platformers.
You try and jump while you're sprinting, after you're sprinting, while standing still, and
Yeah.
you just jump to your death, and you're like, I'm pressing jump.
Yeah, that's it. And
Why?
it feels like it's killing you because it's crap mechanics rather
than anything else.
because of your lack of skill.
Yep. Well, closing thoughts, Jeff.
My thoughts are, if you're a fan of the genre, this is a must-buy. Really, it's like right up there with some of the best of the platform puzzlers, I think. And you know, it's Tim Schafer. Like, if you're at all a fan of Monkey Island or any of his other work, then again, you just give him your money.
Well, I mean,
so he can make more games.
He's definitely a character and a studio that needs to be supported, and they are genuinely loved by the gaming community. And so yeah, I'm a culprit for not purchasing this when the game originally came out, and I do recommend that you at least have a look at the game. It's going to be pretty difficult maybe now to go back, because this game's not been made backwards compatible for the newest consoles. It would require you still having an older console to play it, so I'm guessing the most affordable and practical way to probably play the game now is on PC with controller support, to which I expect the game is also relatively cheap on Steam as well, with it being as old as it is and with the sequel on the way. So definitely check this game out in a Steam sale on a budget.
You will definitely get this for pennies, really.
Yes, definitely. And with that, you are going to get the probable 12 hours, I think, it would take to play the game straight through without trying to track down all the missables, collectibles, hidden items, and Easter eggs.
Yeah.
Which is quite a good wealth of time, especially, as I've said, with the over 3 hours of cinematics, cutscenes, and dialogue. So it's almost like a feature movie anime.
Yeah.
At the same time with Tim Schafer's humor, which is worth the price alone.
It's definitely like the graphics are dated, but it's not really about the graphics. This game, it is about the voice acting and the silly writing and silly art style. No. So there you go.
So
I
yeah,
died.
it just resets you.
Just
right
sets me back there. That's fine. And everything I picked up is still picked
back.
up.
It's all
as
picked
well,
up, yeah. So it's
it handles death in a way that's not too irritating or frustrating, so you can just
keep retrying.
keep going through
It's
the
more
game.
about fun than anything.
Yeah.
Well, that's it from us here on Off the Shelf Reviews this Gaming Friday. We'll be back next Friday with another video game, of course. Film reviews on Thursdays. You can find us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Patreon. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Take it easy.
Hey, kid,